All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting back to order. Nevada Board of Wildlife Commissioners on May 15th. We'll pick back up with agenda item number 10, Commission General Regulation 457 LCB file number T003-15, board issuance and use of tags, proposed changes to NAC 502.42279, Game Division Administrator Brian Wakeling for possible action. The Commission will hear a temporary reg amending license issuance and use clarification for elk incentive tags. Elk incentive tags are designed to be issued in association with bull hunts and seasons. Subsequent to initial NRS and NAC adoption, spike hunts have been developed, and antler tags do not clearly denote appropriate quota or seasons for which the incentive tags are intended. The amendment formula would account for harvest of spikes, but identify seasons for incentive tag use. The Nevada Board of Wildlife Commissioners conducted a workshop on March 20th. The Commission discussed the language with changes to Section 1, rewriting the formula. I'm not going to read it. And making some suggested changes to the total number of spike elk harvested in the previous year in the unit or units within the management area or areas in which private land is located. The regulation has been updated to reflect the changes requested by the Commission. The Commission approved to move forward and take action at this meeting. Mr. Wakeling for our math lesson today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. Brian Wakeling, Nevada Department of Wildlife, Game Division Chief. This largely, the need for this regulation change largely came about through, the history of NRS and some of the developments that happened. Real briefly, the NRS establishes a program for the issuance of the special incentive tags, but it doesn't provide specific definitions for bull elk. At the time of the initial adoption, which was 1997, only permits issued for male elk by the Commission were for bull elk, and spikes weren't considered. Bull was defined in NAC, and a definition for spike was added in 2002, but a subsequent amendment to the NAC amended the definitions for several of the game species, of which an amendment changed the designation of bull to antler. Consequently, there's no current definition of bull in either NRS or NAC, which makes the interpretation of this rule a little bit less clear than what we would like. We provided this information at the workshop, and essentially we just modified the rule to specifically deal with the bull tags. And we did that by referring to antler tags excluding spike. In that discussion, the Commission asked that the harvest of spikes be considered. And so essentially the difference that has been added is when we look at the total number of tags issued, we also added the total spike harvest to that definition, or that part of the equation. We can go through the equation more in depth, but my sense is this does reflect what the Commission asked the Department to address, and we'll present this now. This is again a temporary regulation and something that will come back to the Commission this fall.
Questions from the Commission?
Can we try to quantify the effect on the available tags for the draw based on adding the total spike harvest? Is there a way to do that?
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, we base our permit recommendations or tag quota recommendations off of current year survey. The real challenge in trying to address what we've seen in the spike harvest is that although we may issue a large number of permits, this is currently one of the lowest hunt successes that we achieve. And so the harvest, if we were to go with the tag number, it would really inflate the effect of the formula. By using the actual harvest, we're able to account for it and still appropriately incentivize the program, and yet not not dramatically affect the change. And the way you're looking at me, I'm probably not answering the question you asked.
No, I'm all thinking about something else, I'm sorry,
Okay.
but, the only reason I bring it up is my understanding with the incentive elk tax, that we look at the total number of elk, in the area, correct? So the spikes are they being double counted in this situation, or?
No, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, this is not, it does not double count them. This, the way this had been crafted originally, we've only at this point just added spike hunts just recently, and prior to that, it was bull harvest. And so what we were trying to do is find a way to quantify and appropriately account for the spike harvest in addition. And that was what the commission had directed the department to consider. And so we're not double counting them. We look at, and the way the equation is crafted, it looks at the area, the number of elk that actually use this area, and also to clarify, this is incentive area. This is not. This is on private habitat that is not cultivated. This is, providing an incentive for private landowners to actually provide a benefit for wildlife. And so it looks at the proportion of the herd, so the total number of estimated animals in the population, the total number of estimated animals that occur on the land, the amount of time that they spend on that land, and then looking at the total harvest and total tags within that area, and using that to try to proportionally reward a landowner for rewarding it or for providing a resource for elk.
All right, okay, thank you.
Additional questions? Seeing none, what I'll do is, thank you, Brian. We'll bring it out. County Advisory Board comment on item number 10. Public comment, Reno on 10. Las Vegas, item number 10.
Thank you, Chairman. No comment in Las Vegas.
Elko.
No comment, Chairman.
Okay. We'll bring it back to the commission. Is there any other question or discussion? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve Commission General Regulation 457 LCD file number T003-15 as presented by the department.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Wallace, seconded by Commissioner Bliss to approve Commission Regulation 457 as presented by the department today. Are there any questions on the motion or further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, Brian. With that, we will close agenda item number 10 and move to agenda item number 11, Humboldt County Elk Species Management Plan Process. Game Division Administrator Brian Wakeling for possible action. Commission will continue the elk subplanning process in accordance with the Nevada Elk Species Management Plan for Humboldt County. The commission may select members of the steering committee for volunteers for this elk management subplan. I'll turn it over to Mr. Wakeling to let us know where we are in the process, and then I'll update the commission on where we are with a list of possible volunteers. Brian.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. Brian Wakeling, Game Division Chief for that Department of Wildlife. The whole planning process is governed by a couple of different items: the elk strategic plan, and then or the elk statewide plan, and also some of the sub processes they're under. Real briefly, some of the steps that are include the director's notification of the commission of a need for a plan to be developed. That occurred on February 11th as part of the department's or the director's briefing to the commission on department activities. At that point, the clock starts running, and the commission has about 3 months at that point to appoint a sub-planning committee chairman. That occurred at the March 21st meeting, and Eddie Booth was selected to be that individual. After that, the third step is for the commission to appoint a steering committee from a list of volunteers and assigned agency personnel. Planning meetings are subsequently initiated in the community closest to the new Elk subplan area. The steering committee will appoint a technical review team, and that review team is natural resource professionals. Within 6 months of the first meeting of the team, the committee will distribute a draft to the commission, to the director, who must post it on the NDOT website, and at scheduled public meetings in Reno and Las Vegas for public comments. Those comments are for the technical review team's consideration. That team then monitors the progress of planning groups and planning team to ensure the facilitation of the process, and ultimately submits for approval in accordance with the Elk Species Management Plan. Currently, we are at step C, where the commission appoints a steering committee for the list of volunteers. The department facilitated a request for volunteers that was sent out under the signature of the chairman of the commission, chairman of the sub-planning team, and the director of the department. That occurred, and requested names to be submitted to the department. That's kind of where we are at right now. And I also would mention that the district biologist for the game division, Ed Barty, is in the room if any questions come up.
Thank you, Brian. Just to follow up on that, obviously this process has been evolving pretty quickly. We did get some volunteer letters back and some interest back, and we're able to have a conference call with the steering committee chair, Eddie Booth, and NDOW staff to review those recommendations late last week. And with that, I apologize for not getting support material out on it, but we needed to confirm with all the folks that they were willing to serve, so we have since done that. So what I will do is I'll just read through the list of folks that we have confirmed an interest and a willingness to serve on the committee. And the first one is Lyle Avey, the local representative from Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, Kevin Gallio with the Nevada Chucker Foundation, Mark Evitz with Nevada Muleys, Tom Casanelli with the Humboldt County Advisory Board, local landowner, Boyd Hatch with the U.S. Forest Service, Ron Cherry, Humboldt County Commission, and he's seeking to find out if he can formally represent the commission. He's also a local landowner and permittee, and I believe he has authorization now as well to represent the Nevada Cattlemen's Association. Mike Sperry with Winnemucca Farms, Brad Schultz with UNR Cooperative Extension, William Mack with Winnemucca BLM, Hank Dufferina, local permittee, and I believe he's also a member of Wool Growers, although I don't know that he's been approved to represent that organization. Terry Boyle, who's a local business rep. I believe he owns the Winnemucca Inn. Fred Anderson, who's a local guide. Brian Day with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. That's the list that we came up with. All those individuals have confirmed. We did have one other individual, Martin Murator, and I probably got that wrong, who was recommended as the local Farm Bureau rep, who declined to serve on the committee. With that, again, the chair, Mr. Booth, was comfortable with that list. I believe the department's comfortable with that list. I'm definitely comfortable with the list. I think we've got a good cross-section of folks who have represented various backgrounds and backdrops. And so my recommendation would be for the commission to approve that today so that we can start. I don't think that means that if additional folks pop up or we miss someone or they didn't get their recommendations in on time that we couldn't add them in the future. But we really tried to make a concerted effort not to get so big with this process that it was going to be unwieldy. You know, obviously folks who aren't appointed to the steering committee are welcome. There'll be all public open meetings and they'll have an opportunity to provide inputs. I did suggest that both myself and Commissioner Morai should probably be commission liaisons to the planning committee, and that doesn't, maybe you and I, Pete, can try and make it a point to attend each meeting just to have a commission presence there, but we won't be sitting on the steering committee. It'll just be there to answer questions or help along with the process and kind of report back to this body as they move along. And then NDOW staff, I think primarily will be Ed Partee, local area biologist, Mike Scott, supervising biologist, and Brian, I would imagine to some extent, you'll be involved as well. So with that, I would open it up to any questions from the commission at this time.
Mr. Chairman, do we have a member of the public outside of the stakeholder interest groups? It seems like we have a lot of people who are directly involved, but I'm just wondering if we have a citizen who's outside of those interest groups, or someone who would be outside of that to represent the public.
Great question, Ms. Lane, and really what we did is we looked at soliciting volunteers from a whole list. I think there's like almost 20 different organizations on the list of folks we need to solicit. We really went off the list of folks that we got back. I don't believe it says anything on a general member of the public, but everyone, I believe, is a member of the community. Obviously, Mr. Boyle isn't associated or affiliated with any group. It's just more that he's a local business person, and I guess you could say general member of the community. But I think everyone that we've identified are probably long-standing members of the community and have a lot of skin in the game, so to speak, from both their interest background but also their personal background. So I'm pretty excited about the group that we've put together. Additional questions? At this point, what I'll do is open it up. Any county advisory board comments on this? Come on up, Joe.
Joe Krim, Persian Cab. I can appreciate the work that's gone into this from the department and the Humboldt County side of it, but I think that we need to look ahead and start developing a plan for the whole eastern region now, so we're not in the situation that we're in with Humboldt County now with it trying to be fast. I just want to keep it on the front burner so at least we can start that process now.
Thank you. Additional county advisory board? Any public comment in Reno? Public comment in Las Vegas on item 11?
Thank you, Chairman. No comment from Las Vegas.
Okay, Elko?
No comment, Elko.
Okay. Hearing none, we'll bring it back to the commission. Mr. Partee, I think you're here somewhere. Did you have anything to add, or did I miss or misrepresent anything?
No, I don't think so. I mean, western region, not eastern.
I knew what you were saying.
Ed Partee, game biologist, Humboldt County. No, I think you got everything pretty much on that. One of the other things with Terry Boyle is he's also a member of the Winnemucca Convention Visitors Authority, so he'll have that lead in there as well.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Partee while he's up to the microphone? Seeing none, just to address the statement by Persian Cab, and I completely understand. We had that discussion going into it, if we should do an entire western region plan and try and take it all in one bite or go with Humboldt. I was very adamant about starting with Humboldt. There's animals on the ground. It's obviously a community that's very engaged in their public lands and their wildlife, and so I wanted to start there. But we do have an eye towards the rest of the western region. We're just trying to figure out the way to move forward, and I have a feeling I will be giving you a call to solicit your ideas on that as well. All right, any further discussion or question by the commission? If not, I'll make the motion on this, I guess, just to be easiest. So I would move to appoint the following individuals to the Humboldt County Elk Planning Steering Committee: Lyle Avey, Kevin Gallio, Mark Evitz, Tom Casanelli, Lee Hatch, Ron Cherry, Mike Sperry, Brad Schultz, William Mack, Hank Duffarina, Terry Boyle, Ed Anderson, and Brian Day.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to appoint those individuals to the steering committee. Any question or discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. With that, we will close item number 11, and I would just say I think we've got at least one member who will serve on that committee in the audience today, and maybe you folks from Winnemucca can take this back, but I really appreciate everyone's willingness to serve on this steering committee and really look forward to a good collaborative process, so thank you all. Item number 12, Wildlife Damage Committee Update Fiscal Year 2016 Draft Predation Management Plan, Final Draft. Commissioner Bliss, Game Division Administrator Brian Wakeling, and Wildlife Staff Specialist Pat Jackson for possible action. The Commission will hear a report from the Wildlife Damage Management Committee Chairman and consider an updated third and final draft of the proposed fiscal year 2016 Predator Management Plan. The Commission may take action to modify or approve the plan. Brian, are you leading us off, or Chad?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start.
Commissioner Bliss.
Thank you, Chairman Drew. I'll start off at the March meeting as the committee met. We took input from the department on the plan, committee input, and as well as general, public input. And with the input that we received, there was a motion made that was brought forward to you guys, to this full commission at the March meeting, which was approved. We met yesterday, same process. There was a couple additions that were and changes from the plan that you have right in front of you now. As far as any of the projects themselves, none of them were removed or no new projects basically were added. There was additional funds to project 37, amount of 40,000, and also project 38, amount of 40,000. And then we also requested that we see the expected revenues and beginning balances in the account, which the department has brought forward today. What I'd like to do is turn it over to Mr. Wakeling and Mr. Jackson, and they can go through some of the projects for the commission, and to get the input from the full commission. But the committee did recommend approval of the plan that is already in front of us today, for approval of the commission for the FY 2016 plan. So that unless there's any other committee members that would like to add anything before I turn it over to Mr. Wakeling and Mr. Jackson. Free to comment.
Commissioner Johnston?
I'll give the explanation as to why the additional funds were proposed to be added to projects 37 and 38. Is at the committee meeting yesterday, we received some additional financial information with respect to going back to fiscal year 2014, what the beginning balance was at that year, along with revenue, the actual expenditures, and then the ending balance. And when you look at the ending balance at fiscal year 2014, it was $438,000 and change. We're in the midst of fiscal year 15, so we don't know actual numbers with the ending balance, but it seems that the predator management pot, so to speak, or account is continuing to grow, and that going into this year, you would look at, we would estimate your beginning balance at about $490,000 with expected revenue of over $500,000, which would result in a beginning balance of over $1 million. Because of that, what was made to increase expenditures, not by adding programs, but to the existing programs 37 and 38, which are statewide, Lyon and Coyote control. So that was the idea, that start spending more money on the predator control as the account is continuing to grow. And then there was also discussion that when we get into the program for next year, we start looking at other available programs or adding programs that are identified as positive programs that can be funded with the account.
Mr. Lane?
I was the lone person who voted against the proposed plan, and I just want to say this kind of goes back to the issue that we talked about when we made changes to policy 23, and that was the idea that This is the department's plan, that, you know, as opposed to the commission's plan, it's the department's plan, and my concern about adding additional funds was that, you know, when you talk about adding that kind of money, you have oversight requirements that have to be done, and I think you're maybe placing an unfair burden on staff, but I also have concerns, as we talked at length, and we actually had Mark Jensen and Joe Bennett from Wildlife Services talk about some of the issues that they've had in the past. With Projects 37 and Project 38, you know, the perception that there's no real definition of where these projects are taking place. They're statewide. The idea, I think they do a disservice to the overall concept of trying to target specific areas, you know, to do targeted removals. And so that was my concern in voting against the plan.
Additional committee discussion or comment? Or commission at this point? Mr. Wakeman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Bliss, members of the commission. What I'd like to start with is just kind of the brief overview that we gave the committee yesterday on the status of the plan. And so it's about 4 or 5 PowerPoint slides. I don't know if you want to dodge the light for that long. I can go through those really briefly.
Yeah, let's, just because I'm the guy in
Okay.
the deer in the immediate headlights. Just switch around. It's starting slowly, it says. We're on a countdown. I don't know what that means.
You're sitting in the right seat.
Mushroom cloud in 2 seconds.
Liftoff.
Okay, very good. This is, again, just a real quick overview of some of the briefings that we provided the committee with yesterday. You know, what we've heard from the committee and from the commission, and there's been some discussion in the public about whether or not, you know, what percentage of the funds should be targeted for various aspects. But what we've consistently heard is that at least 75% of the predator feed fund should be targeted towards some type of predation management, typically what I term limited lethal removal. And what I mean by limited lethal removal, again, that was questioned yesterday during the committee meeting. You know, this is not an extermination plan. It's not expected to continue without end, but it is a lethal removal. It has a lethal component. We are killing animals in order to meet our objectives. The remainder of that could be up to 25% in these other aspects of it. The original proposal that we brought to the commission or to the committee yesterday had about 81.4% of the budget in that framework. There are limitations on what we can do with federal aid dollars, which brings us to the predator management fee. For instance, we cannot conduct predator removal with federal aid grants unless it is part of a bigger research study. If it's part of a bigger research study, then it throws us into the federal nexus associated with it, and we've got a full-blown NEPA evaluation on our hands. If we're doing it from a management perspective, just as if we were doing pheasant releases, that's something else that's not permitted underneath the federal grant guidelines. We have to do those with state dollars. The predator fee allows us to do that. Other examples of things that we're limited on, we have a federal raven removal permit, and that limits our removal to 2,500 animals. We spoke to Mr. Jackson, contacted the Fish and Wildlife Service since our last meeting in order to expand that. Their Fish and Wildlife Service views this as a temporary, not our primary approach to Raven management, and so they were questioning what else we do. And when Mr. Jackson was able to brief them on the other activities that we're involved with, they were very impressed to hear that we were doing those things. But to increase this cap, it will take another full-blown NEPA analysis. Currently, they're down about 2 personnel in an office that sounds like it's got about 4 people when it's fully staffed, and they don't have the funding to conduct that. And so they're not real anxious to initiate that effort. I just handed out a document to the commission. I've got additional copies here, and I think what I want to do at this point is leave this document and move to the Word document that we've also got. Anybody that's interested in a copy of this, I do have copies here. It'll also be up on the screen so anybody can see. This was the changes that we made to the budget from the prior, what had been submitted to the committee based on their feedback from yesterday. The first project, we had $14,000 from the predator fee, gets transferred to the Department of Agriculture. That money, and what I've added is a footnote on this and renamed it, Department of Agriculture Administrative Support Transfer. The footnote is new as well, and the transfer of the $3 predator fee for administrative support to the Department of Agriculture partially funds state personnel that conduct work for the benefit of wildlife at the direction of the USDA and Wildlife Services. For example, mountain lion removal to benefit wildlife. This is something that has been going on for quite some time. It has not been identified specifically within the predator report prior to this or the predator plan. However, we have for the last 2 to 3 years been making this administrative payment from this account. It comes from the predator fee, and so we wanted to be explicit in identifying that it's there. As Commissioner Bliss pointed out, there's an increase to 2 projects, Project 37, Project 38. They went from $40,000 to $90,000, and so that's identified on there. The total then jumps to $556,000 from the $3 predator fee. And I've added a footnote here. There was some questioning regarding whether or not you could really consider some of these projects to be limited lethal removal projects because they had some other aspect in it. For instance, raven removal and greater sage-grouse nest success. That's Project 2102. That is primarily a limited lethal removal project. There is an aspect of it that is conducted to determine what kind of nest success. What I've indicated in this footnote is that the projects that contain limited lethal removal as a primary aspect, making them ineligible for federal aid funding, is 80% of the budget. And what that should say is of the predator fee budget, because you'll also know that there's $252,000 federal aid dollars allocated to the predator plan. These are for projects that are non-lethal in nature. They're helping us learn more about predators that may facilitate effective management in the future. Also, as Commissioner Bliss pointed out, we wanted to see what the expected revenues and beginning balances would be. We have added 3 columns, fiscal year 2014. This is actual. That's not the fiscal year we're in currently. Those are actual expenditures, revenues, and one other thing I've included in there is the authorized budget. Often a point of confusion with people, people will look at expenditures, they will look at revenues, and they will look at budgets. Those are 3 very different things. Revenues are what comes in, budgets are what you plan to spend things on, and expenditures are the actual amounts that go out. And so at this point in time for planning phases, or planning purposes, all we can really address are the budgets, what we plan to go forth with. And an analogy that we might use, like the protection for the mountain lions, up to 90,000. That's similar to the motion the commission made earlier today of moving up to 100 pronghorn. That's our authorized budget. That's what we can go up to. We may not be able to actually expend it all, but it's the goal that we're looking towards. For fiscal year 2015, this is the fiscal year that we're currently in. We know that the beginning balance was $437,529. Our revenues are estimated. We don't know what they are at this point in time. And so that's an estimated revenue. The authorized budget is indeed 519, 599. That's what the commission authorized last year. And with those estimates, we project an ending balance of 420,000. Anyway, it'll be a little bit less than what it was last year. For fiscal year 2016 projected, we're getting a little far out on the modeled limb at this point because we don't know where we are exactly right now. But if we use that beginning balance of 420,808, again, expected revenues of 570,368. What we expect to be our expenditures, what we've asked for, the $556,000 budget, that's what we've asked for at this point in time. If all that falls into line, we'll wind up with a carry forward balance at the end of fiscal year 16, about a year from now, at 435,176. So those are the changes that the commission has asked for, or the committee has asked for. It's my hope that this was accurately captured and reflected in this document. And these are the only changes that we've incorporated to the predator plan since the last committee meeting. One of the comments that I often hear is that this is somehow a non-transparent process. And I kind of got to thinking about that a little bit. This is the third time that the commission has seen this plan this year. In addition to that, there's been two Wildlife Neighbors Committee meetings. So right there, we're up to 5. And these meetings are broadcast so that people who can't come here are also able to see it. But it's also been shared with each of the cabs on 3 occasions. So, quick math tells me that there's been an opportunity for comment at an additional 51 times. So there's an awful lot of opportunity for input. I would like to point out that we received a faxed letter from the Mountain Lion Foundation yesterday. In addition to the other comment that we received on this today, 2 letters, basically in opposition to Project 22074 and to Project 37. I wanted the commission to be aware of that. At this point, I would turn some time over to Mr. Jackson to kind of go into the, first of all, another comment that we've often heard is that some of these research projects, investigations, may not have any real application. I'd like to provide him an opportunity to kind of give a quick overview of the project that he's been involved with, and then there's some additional detail with the predator plan involving the changes that the commission had requested from the last meeting.
Switch to 3.
Yes.
Your talk.
Thank you, Brian. Pat Jackson, Predator Management Staff Specialist with Nevada Department of Wildlife. I was a graduate student selected to conduct the research for Project 25, and I taken and put the cart before the horse and taken this position before I finished my dissertation. And I think it's accurate to say, I don't know how many individuals in this room have been to graduate school, but it's rare to hear the words, "I finished quickly in dissertation" in the same sentence when you just go to graduate school. So it certainly is taking longer, but I'm presenting this now. I found my preliminary findings interesting, and I wanted everyone to know that the analysis and writing it are alive and well. So I went to Gatlinburg, Tennessee, presented this at the 16th Wildlife Damage Management Conference. It's really a nice conference. It's mainly an Eastern representation with wildlife services and other state agencies and a little bit of the private sector on lethal and non-lethal management techniques. And so this will more or less be the title of my dissertation. And I'm sorry, this is the title of the talk I gave. Potential increases in high elevation coyote susceptibility to neck snaring efforts during breeding and gestation periods. And this will be the title of my dissertation. So a very large component of my field work involved trapping efforts. This is actually a coyote immobilized with ketamine and xylazine and not euthanized. And we also contracted with the helicopter capture crew to net gun coyotes as well. And backing up from that a little bit, Giese, in a publication in 2005, defined 3 different distinct seasons for coyotes, and the 2 that I was interested in for this analysis I called season 1, also he deemed it dispersal, and that was 16th of August to the 15th of December, and the breeding gestation periods go from the 16th of December to the 15th of April. I don't believe that these are necessarily hard and fast for Nevada, but they are defined in the literature. And season 1 is somewhat generally a fur bear trapping season. There's certainly some spillover into season 2, but that's something to keep in mind with fur trapping seasons. So I started out with 31 coyotes that we deployed GPS collars on. And we started out doing a combination of Surtrack store-on boards and VHF. Store-on boards collect the data with the GPS communications, and then after 2 years are designed to fall off, and then you find that with a VHF receiver. It also, don't know what I did. And so this would be the VHF and then the store-on board. We had a really high failure rate with these, and due to that and severe reductions in cost and weight, we ended up going to ATS iridium collars. And iridium collars actually are two-way communication with someone at a computer, and so we actually get our data on a schedule that we determine prior to deploying the collar. And so, talking about what happened to these animals, I did not use all 31 animals for this analysis. One just disappeared immediately after the collar was deployed, and I have absolutely no idea what happened to her. 4 were shot by hunters in a relatively short time period after the collars were deployed, making the amount of data collected more or less unusable. 1 was eaten by a mountain lion, also in a relatively short time frame after being deployed. And 4 have just recently been out long enough to conduct this analysis, and so they're not included in this talk as they weren't in Gatlinburg. And then 14 of the collars failed prematurely. And so that's not unviable data, but I didn't get those 2 seasons back to back, so I probably should have elaborated on that a little more. In order to be considered for this analysis, I wanted a consecutive 8 months, so all of season 1 and all of season 2. And so now we're down to 7. And then there was this interesting female. What you see on the screen here are known as minimum convex polygons, so there's just a line drawn around all of the furthest dots. When you see a home range like this is generally a disperser that goes from one area to the next. She was interesting and didn't do that, and she just continued going back and forth until, unfortunately, her collar also failed prematurely, but was out long enough for this 8-month time frame. But that said, I did not consider her a territorial individual, or at least a very unique one as far as the literature is concerned, and so she was not included in this analysis. And so now we're down to 6 individuals. So this is a Google Earth photo, a 3-dimensional image of what GPS points from a coyote would look like. And when we have coyote removal conducted, it's generally in high elevation areas in mule deer fawning habitat to benefit mule deer fawns. And so if this was an individual that had a taste, if you will, for mule deer fawns, up here would probably be susceptible in high snow to helicopters, to airplanes, but then down here at lower elevations, particularly when the snows are deep, would potentially be easier accessed with a snare. And so why snares? They're cheap. A lot of trappers can run over 1,000. There's liberal check laws, particularly in this state, and they do work well with rise and fall in snow. They can be adjusted to accommodate that. So what is a snare? This is the AFWA 2009 definition. A type of capture device that uses a loop, stranded wire or wire rope designed to close around the neck, torso, foot, leg of the animal. And in this particular instance, I would be talking about a lethal neck snare. And this is the premise of how it would work. There's a snare loop in the trail that the animal doesn't know about, and it's captured as it goes from point A to point B. So these are the minimum convex polygons and how I was interested in is there a change in elevational use or home range size from season 1 to season 2? And if so, would they be more susceptible to snaring at lower elevation? And this is just a simple bar graph. There was actually a reduction, though albeit somewhat small, in the majority of the animals that from season 1 to season 2, except for this one. So I didn't really see a pattern there. This is a slightly more complicated analysis. If you're looking for a new Scrabble word, I recommend obtaining centroid. It's up to the researcher to define the interval. And so for this, I generally did a week and a month. And a program that's been written in R and Program R, a package written in Program R, actually defines a week or a month, and then it finds the centroid or the center of that point, and then goes to the next and then measures that distance. So this is a way to measure average animal movement for centroids over defined time intervals. And I'll be using that for another part of my dissertation, but for this, it certainly showed up noisy, and I observed no detectable pattern, from season 1 to season 2. They just tended to be all over the place. But then, when I compared changes in average elevation over time in those same centroids, is where I started seeing a very, very observant pattern. You can see here that in the beginning to the middle of season 1 to season 2, we see a decrease in average elevation, and this averaged out to about 200 meters or 600 feet, which is actually a lot, in a mountain system where a trapper has to deal with deep snows. And so what's to come? I look forward to incorporating the future data sets that are just now available, and then also these partial data sets where I only have portions of season 1 or season 2. And then I'm also going to be including biased random bridges, and this is a more complicated analysis that actually looks at how much the animal used the outside border of their territory versus the inside. And I expect to see an increase in that during that gestation period, or season 2. And then some random walks to potentially analyze the increase of susceptibility of snaring, and then potentially field trials. And so the takeaway points, all 6 of the coyotes did lower their average elevation use, and that average was approximately 600 feet. This did potentially increase their susceptibility to neck snaring, and I'll be able to incorporate about 15 other coyotes into this analysis for my dissertation, and then I expect to submit this to the Journal of Wildlife Management, and this is intended to be done by mid-October while presented at the National Wildlife Society Conference in Manitoba, Canada. And with that, I'll take any questions by the Commission.
Your guys' PowerPoints are done?
No, I have another one for the predator. So is that more appropriate to answer questions now or to present on the predator plan and then answer all questions?
If any commissioners have a question on this presentation, maybe just grab a microphone and ask Mr. Jackson. Any? Go on to the next. Thank you.
This was supposed to have been removed. We've already gone over that. And so before this meeting, I spoke with Commissioner Bliss, and he wanted me to just briefly touch on each project. These slides were intended to go into a little more detail, so I'm going to not hurry but not go into as much detail as I originally planned, and I'm happy to go back and go into further detail if members of the Commission would like. So in drafting this for my first time, I felt that there are different types of projects, and I wanted to give 3 different project types, if you will. And so implementation has probably been the most popular project type, both in this plan and to date. And this is where we put on the ground efforts first and foremost. And so that's either through lethal or non-lethal. We hope to be able to learn something from these, but it's focused on the grounds. Experimental management is a combination of both. So we are conducting something, but then we're also collecting data, ideally preliminarily, to ascertain what the outcome of our management efforts actually were. And then finally, experimentation may or may not have a management component to it, but we're seeking to further understand the biology of predators. And so projects recommended for continuation. Project 21 has been going on for quite a while. Greater sage-grouse removal. protection through raven removal. And you'll see at the bottom of these another comment that we had at, I believe, the first Wildlife Damage Committee meeting was they wanted to see me be the project manager on a few less projects. And this is one that I am a project leader on. So the goals are to understand how raven densities do or don't impact greater sage-grouse populations, identify areas where lethal and non-lethal work can be conducted, and we are doing both, and increase populations of greater sage-grouse where possible. This is a map and a list of the counties where we are permitted by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to conduct lethal removal. And the methods of the lethal removal are chicken eggs treated with DRC 1339, and that's a herbicide. And then pre and post treatments will be conducting point counts to determine if there was or was not a reduction in raven densities. So I did not include this in the slide, but I do believe it's worth noting. We are just about to finish an exclosures device at the Midas transfer station to exclude ravens from that human subsidy. And before building that device, we're actually going to be deploying 7 GPS transmitters to understand how ravens use the landscape pre and post the building of that exclosure. That's built in close proximity to sage-grouse leks, and then we're also going to be conducting surveys at along the utility lines to understand nesting structures. And anyway, the budget for this is $78,000. It's not available for federal assistance. Project 2201 is very similar to just Project 21, except there's more of a experimental management component. And really a co-PI for this would be peak codes with the USGS. They're the ones out there monitoring the sage-grouse. So the goals are to understand raven densities and how they may negatively impact greater sage-grouse populations, and determine what mean of management of ravens is appropriate, and ideally to increase greater sage-grouse populations, and this will occur near leks and other sensitive areas. And this is a map where this is being conducted. And then it's a budget of $50,000. It's also not available for Pittman-Robertson money due to the lethal component of the project. Project 22 has been an umbrella project for big game and mule deer enhancement around the state. We have found reporting on that to be confusing, in that really there's not much of a difference between a sub-project and a project, and so as the sub-projects end, we'll eventually be phasing out Project 22 to give everything its own unique name to make both the predator plan and the report less confusing. So 2201 is intended to proactively remove bighorn sheep, mountain lions to protect California bighorn sheep. I'm also the project manager on this. And we also hope to understand the age structures and the sex ratios of lions in that area. Here's a map of where the work will be conducted. And as I said, the methods are proactive, and so they tend to be passive, like things like traps, snares, baits, and call boxes. And the budget of this is $45,000, and it is also does not qualify for Pittman-Robertson match. 2216 is coyote den density efforts on mule deer, fawns, and other wildlife species. I'm the project lead on this, and the justification, we're interested in the potential of coyote denning for the benefit of wildlife and game species in future years. So this does not have a lethal component as of the proposed year prior one. And so we want to understand the number of active dens in the Monitor Mountains and the diet of pups in dens, with the thought that parent coyotes actually have the smallest size of their home range at that particular time of the year. And so instead of in other predator removal experiments in other parts of the United States, generally mountain ranges or halves of mountain ranges have been used as an experimental unit. But we believe that you can actually use a much smaller space, and will allow for substantially more rigorous statistical tests. And then we also want to determine the density, abundance, and or occupancy of the prey species in the monitors. That's where the work will be conducted. And the methods, the dens will be found, a combination of an individual on the ground and aerial infrared camera surveys. Lagomorph surveys involve driving at night with a spotlight survey. Greater sage-grouse will be monitored through leg counts and wing counts. And then the mesocarnivores, the mountain lion, densities or occupancies will be determined through camera trapping and occupancy modeling. And this is, it does qualify for Pittman-Robertson money, and so as you can see, there's quite a bit of federal match available for this. 22074, this has a somewhat of a pro/reactive component of mountain lion removal, but we're also trying to determine mountain lion diet as well. I'm the project lead. So the goals are again to benefit a population of Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep to reach levels where we believe that mountain lion removal is no longer required, and then we're going to be using stable isotopes to determine the diets of mountain lions within this area. This is where the work's being conducted. And we'll be removing mountain lions with hounds in close proximity to bighorn sheep. The proximity of those bighorn sheep are being determined with GPS collars that are and will be deployed. And then for the stable isotope components, we're collecting blood, tissue, and bone samples of the mountain lions, and then also their potential prey species to determine what they have and haven't been eating. There's a lethal component that does not qualify for Pittman-Robertson funding. Project 32 is mountain lion, black bear, mule deer interactions. John Beckman with Wildlife Conservation Society is the project lead. He unfortunately couldn't be here today, but I visited with him and believe I can hopefully answer any questions that the commission may have. And so both Wildlife Conservation Society, University of Nevada, Reno, and Nevada Department of Wildlife are very interested in how black bears are recolonizing their historic ranges and how that recolonization is impacting mountain lions. Are mountain lions actually exacerbating the speed of which mountain lions are recolonizing Nevada? And we're also interested if mountain lion conflicts with humans increase in areas where black bears are present. And this is where we will be conducting our work. The methods, we hope to collar 18 black bears, mountain lions, and 60 mule deer. It's important to note that the mule deer component is also a standalone project that is being conducted by our mule deer staff specialist, Cody Schroeder. The GPS collars actually the new aspect of the technology where they increase their collection schedule when the black bear and the mountain lion are in close proximity, so that we can further understand how those two predators interact once a certain proximity is reached. And then we'll be monitoring mountain lion kill sites both on foot and then with trail cameras to see those interactions between black bears and mountain lions. This is available for Pittman-Robertson match. Project 35, using genetic testing to identify origin of red fox. Russell, our fur bear and waterfowl biologist, is here to answer any questions for the commission. And so this is determining, do we have Sierra Nevada red fox? Do we have European red fox? If so, where are they? Are they hybridizing? And particularly in the valley bottoms where we're concerned about sage-grouse and sage-grouse being predated by red fox. If we did conduct removal or reclassify red fox, what impact would that have on the native Sierra Nevada red fox population? This is where we'll be conducting the work, or have been conducting the work. And this is a cooperative program through UC Davis where they have a geneticist conducting the, and this is also up for grabs with Pittman-Robertson money. And so that we originally did not know that, and so this is one thing we've done to have the $3 predators be allocated to as many lethal projects as possible. Newly proposed projects, big game protection by removal of mountain lions. I'm the project lead on this, and this is intended to be used to remove lions around the state, need be. This is actually the same work has been done under Project 22. Again, there's just been difficulties with reporting that, so now there won't be. And so this is to remove specific problematic lions to benefit game species. And to determine what type of lion does need to be removed, it will be up to area biologists' discretion, but we'll also be interested in areas where young to female ratios are below 20 to 100, where we have individuals that have learned to specialize in places like guzzlers or watering holes, things like this. This is not available for Pittman-Robertson funding and has just recently been increased to $90,000. This is a very similar project except for coyotes, and we believe that removing problematic coyotes is a necessary tool on a short-term notice. And so this will be a combination of wildlife services and private contractors using foothold traps, snares, fixed-wing helicopters for aerial gunning. And again, this work will be implemented in areas where indications are such as young to female ratios fall below 20 to 100. Our area biologists have some sort of biological evidence demonstrating coyote removal is necessary. Does not qualify for Pittman-Robertson funding. Predator education. This is new, and I'm excited about it. We're interested in educating the public about predator habits and how we can reduce human-wildlife interactions and participation. This year, particularly with waste management and ravens. And so it's a little vague here, but that's really what we're intending to do. And by this, the main focus, at least as of now, will be to work with ranchers and farmers to understand why, and then figure out how to remove their dead livestock from the landscape, to remove that human-induced subsidy at correct times of the year. And this also qualifies for Pittman-Robertson funding. Project 40 is actually more or less the same thing as what was 2214. And that's coyote removal, complement multifaceted management in Eureka County. I'm also the project lead on this. Various types of management have occurred in this area with feral horse removal, quite a bit of habitat restoration, and then both wildlife services and a private contractor conducting coyote removal in previous years. And having talked to the area game biologist Mike Bighorn, there's not a slide for this, but at least as of this most recent year, there has an increase in mule deer fawn survival has been noted. This is where the work will be conducted. And our methods, very similar to Project 38, is a combination of wildlife services and the potential for private contractors to lethally remove coyotes in this county. He's not qualified for Pittman-Robertson funding. And this is the same chart that you just saw that Brian presented. And with that, same question slide.
Okay, we'll flip back around to the other side. Mr. Lane.
A couple of things, and I realize that you weren't here at the meeting yesterday, but there was some discussion. You know, you told us about this removal and about deer to fawn ratios, but I think that the issue in terms of looking at this is not to just be killing predators for killing predators. That if you say that you want, that your objective is to increase fawn ratios, as an example, then it seems to me that part of what you should be doing would be to identify what you want those ratios to be. In other words, I have a real problem when you say that we go in because it looks like there's a reduction, and there's a lowering of the ratio, and we want to increase the ratios. Well, then say what it is that you're looking for, because I get a little frustrated sometimes when I see this, and we talk about the science of these projects, and yet, as we talked about yesterday, the only thing we really get from this, from the output, we get outputs and not outcomes. In terms of how many lions we kill. And we don't, and what we're really looking for is the actual outcomes. And the other thing I would be curious is to hear what the Mountain Lions Foundation, what their concerns were. I got that you received a letter, but we don't have a copy of that letter. I'd either like to get a copy of the letter. Thank you.
Additional questions? For Brian, did you want to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Lane. As we spoke and I'm responding on behalf of Pat, he didn't benefit from the conversations yesterday. You point out very valid concerns, and what we want to, and we also discussed fairly at length the differences and the challenges between trying to measure outputs and outcomes. We all agree that we do dramatically want to shift towards measuring outcomes. Trying to manage for fawn to doe ratios or ewe to lamb ratios that exceed 20 per 100. That's part of our objective with that. But what the committee had provided the department with direction on yesterday was they felt that this was an improvement over past plans, and that we will continue to try to improve into the future. But the committee did not provide the department with any direction to amend those at that time. Your comments and your concerns, I think, are very valid, and it is something that the department will continue to work towards, better defining those outcomes rather than outputs, and working with wildlife services as we do that.
Additional questions? I had one question, and it just is more procedural, and I don't know, Pat, if you can answer this, or Brian, or maybe this is a Patrick question, but it seems to me in the past, when we've approved the program for the year, we've also approved the staff budgeting at the same time, and I don't know that I saw a sheet in here on that. Are we doing something different there, or are they baked into the projects, or maybe you can speak?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Brian Wakeling, Game Chief, and I'll certainly defer to Mr. Case to elaborate on this. But what we've incorporated, there hasn't been any specific structure that we were required to include. What we have done for this upcoming fiscal year is we've submitted a federal aid grant that will include Mr. Jackson's time. What that will allow him to do, it's eligible under the Pittman-Robertson grant structure for Pat to be charging his time so long as he is coordinating a predator management project. If he's involved in the actual lethal removal at any point, he would have to be charging his time to an individual project. And so any time that he charges to an individual project is part of the individual project balances that you see here. One of the other kind of critical points with the overall budget, just in general, when we look at the projected revenues that we're looking to take in for any given year, we actually don't receive those revenues effectively till the end of the year. And so while we're showing that as part of our carry forward balance, a lot of the money isn't available during the current year that we're in. And I did want to clarify that. But Mr. Jackson's time will be part of a overall federal aid project.
Additional questions at this point or discussion? Pat, anything to add?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, County Advisory Board comment?
Mitch Burns, Lyon County Cap. Currently, project number 33, Bi-State Sage-grouse nesting habitat restoration project has been recommended for discontinuation. We'd like the commissioners to consider continuing that program. Thank you.
For the record, Paul Dixon, Clark Cab. This is probably the third year in a row I'll get up here. We have a couple members on my board that have been very vocal about the Coyote study that we've done, the 2216 and other ones where we've been doing the study that were talked about when we first got the presentation. And when you add in some of the matching funds that have been added to that over the years with the study. It's been a fair amount of money, and nobody's quite sure on the cab what we're gaining from that when you're looking at coyote eating habits and what they're doing. And although I tried to articulate to the cab of why I thought it was important, still had a split vote, and there was a decision to basically not support those programs of doing those diet and other study habits that are going on. And I leave it there. Thank you.
Other county advisory boards, Joe, come on up.
Sean Shea, Washoe County. We approved this at your guys' committee meeting yesterday. The only thing we had was that $14,000, and I think we clarified that. You guys added, somebody added where that money went. There was nothing to describe. It was just a lump that was just thrown there. So I'm glad you guys did that.
Additional county advisory boards?
Ileana Carson, we thought the budget as presented is a good one, and we voted in favor of it.
Anyone else from county advisory board? Public comment, Reno? Come on up. You don't have to wait for me to call you. You can come on.
Excuse me, this is Karen Taylor, Washoe County resident, and I'm speaking for myself. My concern is about projects 37 and 38 newly proposed projects. I noticed that there is a project goal, for example, under project 37 on page 30 of the handout that I have. The project goal removes specific problematic mountain lions to benefit game species. And I see that the objectives are partially under anticipated results, but then also under methods. I agree with Dr. Lane. I would be very interested to find out more about what specifying ratios, what you want them to be. In my field, objectives are quantitative and time-oriented. And I see that the recommendations are to evaluate the efficacy of Project 37 annually, and then yet this project is going to span more than one fiscal year, so I'm pretty confused about why is this indefinite, and why wouldn't the span indicate that it would be based on evaluation of efficacy. I also have a concern about area biologists have other biological evidence demonstrating mountain lion removal is necessary. As a member of the public, I would like to know exactly what the other biological evidence is, especially if we're going to be spending $40,000 more money on this. Thank you.
Welcome.
Mr. Chairman, Don Mule. Looks like we're at a bit of a choice point. I appreciate the effort on the department's part to do a little more research and outcome rather than output data collection. Yet, as we all know, there's now a bill in the legislature asking that 80% of the predator fee money be spent to kill things, which sounds like return to the old ages. And so I thought at this point, by the way, I support the research stuff. I thought it might be interesting to just take a quick review. By the way, I'm speaking for Nevadans responsible for wildlife management, so hopefully I get it right. Anyway, this bill, as we all know, most of you know, this $3 fee was not generated at the legislature because of any biological reason. This was purely a political bill. It was passed with support of Dr. Lent, who I'm sure will say something shortly, Cecil Freddy, Ray Claiborne, and others, with the premise that the legislature bought, apparently, that this would rebuild Nevada's diminishing deer herds. This was a build our deer herds bill. And the idea was killing predators would do that. Well, that has gone on now, basically random killing of predators over about 12 years. You've now spent over $5 million doing it. And I thought it might be fun to take a look at mule deer numbers over that 12-year period, since that was why the bill was passed in the first place. And in 2003, when this thing got off the ground, mule deer numbers in Nevada were estimated by the department at 109,000. I'm not making this up, these are your numbers. The mule deer estimate last year at 2014 was 108,000, difference of 1,000. During that 12-year period, the low point was 105,000 estimate in 2004. And the high point estimate over that 12 years was 114,000 in 2000. Despite $5 million spent and thousands of animals killed, mostly coyotes in that respect, probably several dozen lions, mule deer herds have been remarkably stable. There has been no proliferation or creation of mule deer in the state after a $5 million expenditure. So it seems to me that if any of you are concerned about efficacy or outcome as a result of spending millions of dollars to randomly kill predators, the evidence is in. It does not work. You have the number. So it seems to me at this point we ought to figure out something more sensible to do with this money. Or maybe at the next legislature, depending on how the composition looks, it might be time, from my point of view, to get rid of this $3. Or try to convince the legislature that it's money poorly spent and should be redirected elsewhere. To go back to the old days, just randomly killing animals because sportsmen demand dead bodies without any kind of an outcome that's sensible is nonsense.
Next public comment.
Hello, I'm Jana Hoppaditz. I am here representing myself. I live on 40 acres, off-grid, out by Pyramid Lake. I'm kind of new at this whole thing, coming to meetings, and I'm glad I've started because I'm blown away. I'm blown away at the amount of money and easy killing with no real true results. I haven't seen, when I moved out there in 1991, I used to see the random mountain lion. It was a blessing. You know that if you see a mountain lion, everybody agrees. It's amazing. It's like, cool, I saw a mountain lion. I don't see them anymore. They're gone in my area. And they might, I have a local trapper, rubbed down on the road. He kills everything you can possibly kill. I know his name. I'd love to say it. I'm not gonna. I'm blown away. I don't know if these are just jobs trying to be created. I'm listening to some of these, and I'm like, these speakers, I'm like, really? All this money and all this effort? Is this just a job made up to have a job? I'm shocked. I'm a taxpayer. I pay quite a lot of money for taxes every year, and those are my animals too. Those are my mountain lions, my coyotes, my foxes. I don't see them up in the hills where I'm at. I don't like that area too much. But I am blown away, and I'm just here to let y'all know that I'm a taxpayer, and I need a say, and so do the rest of Nevadans. They need to know what's going on. All this stuff needs to come out of the closet that's happening. These secret wildlife killings by wildlife services with poisons that poison all of our ecosystem, our children. I have grandchildren. I have these things I'm trying to protect, and I just want to say that. So thank you very much for listening, and I am going to be showing up to every possible thing I can show up at. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next public comment, Reno.
Hello, for the record, my name is Leah Sturgis, and I live on an 800-acre ranch, just right at the bottom of Kingsbury Grade. Come from a predator-friendly ranching family, and I'm speaking out today because I absolutely am appalled about the predator management program. The plan to start killing mountain lions in an effort to help bighorn sheep numbers recover is incredibly short-sighted. Killing mountain lions in the immediate area does nothing, as mountain lions have an enormous area they roam daily and can often travel as much as 50 miles in one day. This means that other lions will simply move into that area. Following this department's logic, would that mean we just continue killing unlimited amounts of mountain lions? To what end? I believe the violence being conducted on our wildlife, especially toward our predators, is senseless and hypocritical. Predators are not responsible for the dramatic loss of wildlife we have seen across the state and around the country. Man is responsible. Loss of habitat due to development is the main reason. Poor planning and development of land without considering wildlife corridors or maintaining wildlife habitat is the real reason for loss of wildlife. Instead of taking responsibility for what we have done, we point our fingers at predators as the cause of our problems and and then our Department of Wildlife incurs a huge expense to kill the very wildlife you should be protecting. We should be protecting our lions, the king of beasts. Why is the value of a bighorn sheep more than the value of a mountain lion's life? Clearly there are some biases going on here. Snaring coyotes to save fawns? How many fawns will be caught in these snares and other non-target wildlife? I spoke to a sheep rancher who lives along the Russian River in California, and for a long time he and many other ranchers were under the assumption that bobcats and mountain lions were killing off many of the sheep in the area. After that, an investigation was conducted, and it turned out that it was actually domestic dogs who would pack up at night and kill sheep. For years, the entire blame was being placed on the bobcats and mountain lions, who were being demonized and eliminated in an effort to stop the killing, when the entire time it was actually the dogs. So I'd like to know what the proof is that these are actually mountain lions that have been killing off the sheep. Where's the proof? I basically live on the border of California and Nevada, and often wonder why I see much more wildlife in California than I do in Nevada. I live in a very rural area, and I have never seen a bobcat. I have never seen a mountain lion. When I was young, there was an abundance of deer, and now I'm lucky to see one deer walk through my property in an entire summer. And the reason I never see deer is not because of predators, it is because of cars. The deer have a very difficult time making it into the valley from the mountains and surviving the very fast-moving traffic coming down Kingsbury Grade. And they have been pretty much wiped out in my area over the years. When I go to places like Lee Vining or Bridgeport, I love to camp at Twin Lakes and constantly observe the flourishing wildlife there. You see 20 to 30 deer in a day. The difference between the amount of wildlife I see in California versus Nevada is remarkable. I decided to attend a California Fish and Game Commission meeting to find out what California was doing different. As it turns out, California is much more progressive when it comes to protecting their wildlife. The non-consumptive wildlife users, meaning the general public who love their wildlife, are being heard and taken into account.
Ms. Sturgis, you're up against your time, so make your last
Okay,
point.
the last comment
If
is-
you have some written, you can hand that in.
Okay? So I just want to say that the commissioners there are representing the public view of making a stand to protect predators instead of catering to sportsmen. It gives me hope to see the public taking interest in wildlife issues, and I hope that Nevadans will speak up for wildlife, and especially our predators who are being targeted and that need the most help right now. Thank you.
Next public comment. In Reno. Come on up. If there's anyone else, come on up behind Mr. Lent. We'll take care of the time, Mr. Lent. You'll make sure to get what you need.
Jerry Lamb with Nevada Hunters Organization. We looked at these plans very thoroughly, as you know, and our organization likes some of the plans, but for Project 2216, the Coyote density plan is useless. And as you saw today, I didn't see what were the benefits to gain. And we spent over $600,000 on that project so far, and there was no benefits to gain. And it only sounds like somebody's gonna get another PhD out of this, and that's what we're doing it for. And I said many times before, you know, we've studied this before, we know what coyotes eat. They eat and they roam where there's food. It's a waste of sportsman dollars. And there's a lot of mistakes in this plan. Let me give you some examples. Looking over the plan, on page 10, they're talking about Unit 02, and they're saying in the diamonds. Now, maybe Chad knows where the diamonds are, but are they in 02? But that's what it says on page 10. That's, you know, they didn't put much thought in the plan. And if you look also on the page 46, the budget, they're talking about spending $40,000 on Project 2014. There's no 2014 in here. It's not in here. I defy anyone to find it. It's not in here. This plan is not well thought of. It's full of mistakes in it, but that's the quality of plan we have. And the other subject I want to bring up is the revenue. Now, the sport material didn't show any revenues. And you added these numbers where the public could evaluate them this morning. And you know, that's not proper since this is the last draft and we didn't look at the revenues. But I'm going to talk about the revenues. The revenue, you can't do a budget without the revenues projected revenues, and the revenues are right here, 570,000 last year. Now, went back and looked at all the data for all the years, and the sources of revenue for the tags. And if you go back when we did this in 2006, we had 337, and I'm just going to go 356, 364, 371, 375, 395, 414, 424, 432, 494, and 570,000. Every year it went up. 1 year they dropped less than 1%. 1%. And I took this from the department's annual reports. There was only 1 year. They went up every year. And the total apps, even through all these recessions, 3 recessions, and we've increased the dollar. So it's not going down. We've increased the number of hunters every year. And you multiply by 3, and it's real easy to figure out. So I think that was because we did away with a non-resident goat or something like that. I don't know what the reason was. But how can you do a predator plan when you don't have the revenue? You know, a balance sheet. Any of you guys know a balance sheet, you've got to have the revenue before you know how much you can spend. And I didn't get a chance to see any revenues before this morning. So you guys did. It's a final draft, so we won't be able to comment again on the revenues. I have no idea if those revenues are accurate or not, but I know what the revenues are I have right here. And it should be easy for you guys to get too. But the plan is flawed because of those things. And like I say, if you can tell me where everything's at, the monitors and stuff like that, and the plan's only on the right numbers, and this Coyote plan is really useless, and for you to go ahead and do more of that one is a waste of sportsmen's dollars, we felt, because the sportsmen think it's going to bring back our game, it's for game, and this isn't going to do anything. I mean, I never heard one thing about game in that, so anyway, thank you.
Next public comment.
Hello, I'm Fawn Tomlinson from Lake Tahoe, California, and just really quickly decided to join this meeting, sitting here. It seems like we're just killing to kill. I agree with what Don's saying. If it's true that there was $5 million spent over the last 12 years to kill predators on Nevada taxpayers' dollars, yet the facts are that the mule deer population has not increased, then that's 12 years of scientific data that we can use, that we can prove that $5 million was wasted. So I have no idea why you would want to continue to waste more taxpayer dollars in the future if we have this. And it has, we all know too that killing predators is indiscriminate. I saw a word, something about a problem coyote, yet you put aerial gunning and snaring, and we all know, I've been talking to trappers, that every time they put out a snare, they get an indiscriminate animal. If they want a coyote, they'll get a skunk, or they'll get a raccoon, or they'll get an opossum, and it happens up to 10 times the indiscriminate animal versus the one that's tried to get. And then even if you want a coyote, you still don't know if you're getting that problem coyote. So I'm not sure that this is a smart plan to spend $5 million when we know, the math tells us that it doesn't work. So I would like you guys to really go back to the drawing board, looking at that scientific data. I know that it's really important, but you put 33 radio collars out there in 2014 and only have 6 of them working in a matter of time. I just feel that we can do better than that. If we wanted 33 coyotes, I don't know, it just seemed a very bad study that I don't know how much you can really get out of it since most of the radio collars fail, but thank you.
Additional public comment, Reno? Mr. Jensen, this would be your time if you had anything to add. Anyone else in Reno? Public comment, Las Vegas.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, we have comment.
Hi, this is Stephanie Myers for the record from Mount Charleston. I'd like to just mention that many of us are really distressed that the word predator management in this predator management plan is really synonymous with killing, with lethal removal. And management doesn't necessarily just mean killing. In the Clark County Cab on Tuesday night, there were very loud protestations that the sportsmen are the one who are funding this predator management plan. And since they are the ones who are funding through both their $3 fee and the Pittman-Robertson funds, that they need deliverables. And deliverables to them mean more predators killed. And they believe that they should have 100% authority into the dispersal of the funds for the predator management plan. And to them, what the lethal removal means is just more game for them to kill during hunting season. But predators are not just simply pests or varmints. They play an essential role in the lives of the wildlife and the entire ecosystem of the planet. So I'd like to suggest that many of us who have expressed our feelings and many of us who are not here would really like to see more of these funds go to research and education, such as Project 39 and 25. Let's do more research into non-lethal methods of predator management and also coexistence with predators. Thank you very much for letting me express my opinion.
Mr. Chair, Jana Wright. Yes, Mr. Chair, Jana Wright for the record. Looking at the predation plan, I find that, for me, the goals are vague for most of the projects. I certainly support Don Moldy's comments about maybe the $3 fee needs to be eliminated because we're finding that killing predators is a short-term solution. And I find that the plan, I can support number 39, the predator education. I support Project 25. I understand that it'll be phased out this year, but I agree with comments that more education, research, and just killing the predators without the conclusions or the goals being more specific is very disturbing to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any public comment in Elko?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Drew. This is Mitch Bazzetti. I just wanted to respond for the Nevada Outfitters and Guide Association that we support this predator plan. I think it's a step in the right direction. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Additional public comment in Elko?
No additional comment.
Thank you. With that, I will bring it back to the commission. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Johnston.
I want to thank Mr. Wakeling and Mr. Jackson for their time and effort in putting this together. I know you both are new and we're going through this the first time, and it's been, I think, a good process. I would like to, there was a public comment about bringing this out into the open or explaining what's going on. This is the third commission meeting in which this predator management plan has been open to the public for public input. There have been 2 committee meetings on this same thing where the public was free to provide input. The notion that this is somehow being done in secret or not open to the public, it's just belied by the fact that this is the 5th public meeting in which this predator management has occurred. I believe there was a comment about the habitat restoration for the bi-state population. I believe that program is continuing, but separate funding has been found for that, and that was the reason it was removed from this plan, so that habitat restoration for that bi-state population is continuing, just not with use of the predator management money. I don't want to rehash what I think a lot of people already know in this room, but there was a lot of comments about taxpayer dollars and that. I think it's, you need to clarify again on the record, this is not funded by taxpayers generally, but by those taxpayers who pay the $3 fee, which is charged in connection with a big game tag application. So this is not general taxpayer dollars, but a specific fee that's charged in connection with that big game application. And I want to also reiterate something because of the comments that were made today, that there is a statutory mandate on how this money is to be used, and that includes lethal control of predators. And we have developed the plan accordingly. I want to thank the department for updating the attachment or the budgetary supplement to this based upon the comments that we had in the action committee meeting yesterday. And given all that's been put into this and where we're at, I think it's a huge step in the right direction. And I'm going to support this plan as I did at the committee level yesterday. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Additional discussion, Mr. McNash.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, originally, I guess I might have had a couple of comments about certain aspects of the plan, but, in hearing the conversations in the public comment, I think the department is in a real thankless position here. They really are. And I get the impression that they're the fall guys for a lot of things that are way outside of their control. And, they're balancing the statutory pressures that are set on them by the legislature. They're dealing with, they're trying to remain flexible. They're trying to incorporate science. They're trying to be a science agency. And they've got a ton of interests outside of that, and they're trying to balance that with their plan. And what I see is that sometimes I ask myself, does the department really believe that there are $500,000 worth of removal projects out there that need to be conducted? I've never asked them on the record because I don't want to put them in that position. That would be very difficult for them to answer. The politics are playing into things, whether we like it or not. And while we're here talking about this today, the legislature, we're talking about let's increase the money for research and doing things that might appeal to certain individuals. The legislature's down there considering mandating 80% of this go to lethal removal. I mean, we're so interject yourself in the right place, I guess. As important it is for us to hear it, and it is for me to hear these things. If you really want to affect change, it's at that legislature. That's what's driving this stuff right now. Whether if you appreciate it or not, it doesn't matter. That's what's driving this stuff. And so I appreciate, Brian, what you and Pat have done. I think you guys have worked real hard to find some balance here. I may not be in favor of all of it, but I think that you guys have done a really good job of trying to frame some of this and trying to build in some flexibility and try to maintain your science. And I appreciate that. And I want you guys to know that I recognize how difficult it must be to try to maintain all the balances. And I know you can't come up here and say that. So I hope I covered it for you.
Additional discussion, Commissioner Lane.
I would also want to reiterate what Commissioner McNash just said. I think that's really important. I appreciate the time and effort that has been put into this project by both Lyon and by Pat. I think it's really important, and I'm new to this. I think you've done a great job given the constraints of what you've been under and the fact that the legislature is changing things as we speak. But I'm still going to vote against it. And I didn't pay those $3 fees, but I do represent the public, and I think I'm going to be voting against the motion.
Additional comment by the Commission, Commissioner Young?
Thank you. I too want to echo Dave's comments about the quality of the work of the department and Pat and Wakeling, the work that you guys do. You don't get recognized enough for it. I saw those pictures. I think that was you, Pat, stomping in those hills and doing all that work and studying it. That takes a lot of effort, and it is based on science, and I think we can't lose sight of that. I get a little frustrated with people parachuting in here for a meeting or two with their ideas of what they think should happen here in Nevada. And they don't even really know how some of these projects are funded. They are not tax dollars, and thank you, Brad, for pointing that out so that we get some clarity on that. We can't fix the politics, but I do want to recognize the department, and you guys are in a tough spot. And as far as the politics go, it's amazing to me to see some of these. I've known these guys for years, Democrats, liberals, because I was in politics for quite some time, supporting some of these inane ideas of 80% of the dollars going to killing predators. But that's the way politics works. One day you're an enemy, the next day you're a friend. And there's so much baloney that goes on with it. But that's where the voices need to be, as was pointed out, is at that legislative building, making a difference with the people that can actually affect some change. Thank you.
Additional comments? Commissioner Bliss?
You know, I agree with everything said from Brad to Karen, Dave, and the committee worked hard on this. We took into account the public comment that was provided to us at those committee meetings. The department, we spent a lot of time there. This plan today in front of us is thousands of percent better than plans that I've seen in the past. It's come a long, long ways. We're all working towards a goal, and we want to do good sound science. We want to do proper predator management. In my mind, it's got to be done at the right place, at the right time, and the right amount of money. I don't want to do indiscriminate killing of any wildlife at all, period. And so that's not the way I'm made up. That's not what I believe in. I rely on professionals in the field to say, you know, we should remove predators here or here. But it's got to be at the right time. And I believe in some of this. And some of the projects we're removing coyotes during fawning time to protect those mule deer fawns so that those populations can sustain. They don't have to be done every single year. Once that population reaches a level that we're getting fawn recruitment and our herds are established and over that, I call it the predator hump, then they should stop. And so to be accused of just killing to kill, I take offense to that, because that's not how I'm made up personally. Never have been, never will be. And the hard work and effort of all included, I support the plan that's provided in front of us today because of those reasons.
Additional commission discussion or comment?
I'll just make one additional comment, Mr. Chairman, because I think it's important. This commission was also, it's taken action to be down at the legislature as the revisions to the predator management fee money were considered. We've tried to work with the legislature, and unless it's something I don't know, it was not coming from this commission that the 80% number going in to statute or be considered in the statute. To the contrary, I think our position has been to leave it with flexibility to create the program, mindful of what was intended under the statute. So I just want to put on the record that this commission has been active in the legislative process as well to express the views of the sportsmen and the public in Carson City as well, and working with members of the legislature on various items with respect to this money.
Further discussion? I'm just going to build a little bit on what Brad had said. I think it's important to point out some of the limitations and restrictions that were placed on us. When I started on this commission 4 years ago, we had a process that, in my opinion, was completely derailed. And if you'll recall, it took us about 18 months to figure out where we were, and the next 18 months to draft an entirely new policy, which took us the next 18 months to get through it, which has resulted in this plan. Is the plan perfect? Is it something that I agree with wholeheartedly? Probably not. But is it damn good? Yes. And in doing so, we've had a great committee. I have defended that committee publicly and privately, probably to my own peril at times, but I believe in you all, whether it's Commissioner Bliss chairing it, Commissioner Lane, Commissioner Johnston, Commissioner Morai, and Mr. Casanelli. I believe in what you guys are doing. I believe you're respectful of the process and the people involved. You had a new policy to implement. You had a lot of new plans. You had new staff to deal with. And Brian and Pat, God bless you, because you got thrown into the mix right smack dab in the middle of it. You've done a hell of a job, and you haven't gotten much thanks for it. In fact, what you've gotten is a lot of criticism. And it hasn't been from me, because I know how hard you work and I know how hard my committee works. And you can bet that that view has been reflected to the legislature regardless of what they do. But this commission is bound to some degree by the policy and the hand that we're dealt. And given where we started, I'm 1,000% more comfortable where we are today than when I started here 4 years ago. So I will support the plan based on all that hard work with a great deal of appreciation and gratitude to my committee and to this department. With that, is there any other discussion? Mr. Morai.
Amen.
Can I get a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that the commission adopt the recommendation of the committee with respect to the predator management plan for fiscal year 2016.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion or question on the motion? Mr. McNash.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, based on the comments that I made, I will support the plan because I'm just not sure how many alternatives we have. I think, I do have there's some aspects I'm not comfortable with, but I think the department's just done, there's a lot of hand ties, a lot of hands are tied, and I think that it's as good as we're gonna get until other things are done.
Additional comment or question? Everyone's clear with the motion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 8-1 with Lane dissenting. With that, I'll close agenda item number 12.